Hello and welcome to the new episode of the Short Story Ears. And we're here to talk about two of my favorite things, really, creators and creator economy. That's why I'm super excited for this episode in particular. We are in the middle of the algorithmic era. Yes, would you agree? Sure. And the thing is that brands are now turning to creators, not for one-off tactical collaborations, but it's more about meaningful partnerships that will actually help brands be relevant, on point, and tap into the right cultural moments. And I couldn't wish for a better set of brains here to talk about the matter. So shall we start with the introductions?
So my name is Shenda and I am the Global Brand President for Dentsu X.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm Global Strategy Lead at Meta for Creators and Creator Marketing.
And my name is Caitlin, and I am the creative partner for Dentsu Creative in the UK.
So let's dive into the algorithm thing, right? Because if/when the algorithm decides pretty much everything in terms of what we see in our feeds, even how we react to that, really, right? How do you think it's possible for brands to still reclaim originality and relevance in this sea of sameness, as they call that?
So absolutely right. We say that that's one of the let's say the characteristics of the algorithmic era is that algorithms are making choices. So we say that whereas in the past we thought about mental availability and we thought about physical availability, we now actually have to think about algorithmic availability and really understand the relationships that algorithms play in the choices that people make. And what that means is that brands have to increasingly think about, because there is that sea of sameness that you described, how do you hack the algorithm? What are the things that you do that are a little bit differently? And how do you understand the algorithm really, really well
Yeah.
in order to deliver impact for your brand? That might mean doing things like, for example, the work we did with Hilton on TikTok, for example. Producing a really long format in what is traditionally short format medium, but really
That's
looking
bold.
at ways,
Yeah.
looking at ways to drive impact in really kind of hacky sort of ways. I think that's important, but also really understanding the algorithm and how platform algorithms are built is really key for brands to be able to win.
I'd just like to add on to that with a little observation about how consumers are hacking the algorithm themselves. So we see that particularly younger generations are curating their feeds very intentionally, training the algorithm to deliver very personalized, hyper relevant, niche content. And often that kind of content is creator led, right? So we're seeing niche content creators, and big reason why people follow creators now is because of the very niche content they create. So when we talk about creating content for the algorithmic era, I think it's so much about diversification. It's so much about building around preferences, different communities, and so on and so forth.
So it's kind of, humans to algorithms to humans back again, right? So it's a vicious circle,
Yes.
which is
Yeah, and I would just put then kind of combining all of that is to put culture in the middle.
right.
And because I think both the algorithm and communities, they're all navigating around different kind of culture and microculture moments. And culture is what makes brands super, super relevant to different audiences. But understanding the culture of these different communities, that's where kind of creatively you can really get ahead.
And again, what could be more human-centric than culture and communities, fandoms, and all of the things that we're talking about here in Cannes this week, really.
People build culture, so that's where brands need to start.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a lovely thing to notice because last year and the year before, the talk of the town was all about AI. This year, we're shifting gear and, we're talking more about culture, moments that matter, and, like human experiences and the experiential side of things. And I think it's a lovely, lovely way to continue the conversation about the algorithm and AI, and all the machinery that is ultimately defining how the marketing landscape works right now, right?
And I think you need that balance, right? As we have more
Always.
AI, right? And we like to describe it as AI and PI,
Yeah.
right? That you have artificial intelligence, but you also need people intelligence. So that understanding of
There's nothing we can do without people intelligence. So true.
exactly, right? So that understanding of culture and people and what makes culture is so important.
Right.
To blend that with AI understanding, of course.
Okay, going back to the creator economy, everybody creates content. With so much content there fighting for our attention, do you think that playing it safe now is the riskiest move that brands can actually take?
I think I love how you say that. That's the riskiest move that
Exactly.
you can take for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think with so much content out there, I think it's about, and we've said some of this already, it's about really understanding your brand, first of all, and what it stands for. Really having a real understanding of culture and having an understanding of what is trending in culture and what are the key things that people care about in culture is really key. And then finding the right influencers that I think and the right creators that can actually deliver that message for your brand. And one of the other, I think, really important things that we're saying to brands today is that it's really important to find the right balance between the content you create yourself and the content that's authentically created
Right.
by the creator economy. And finding that balance is one of the key things that we're talking to brands about today.
Yeah, I think it's a new muscle for a lot of brands to start or originate at a different starting point. So rather than thinking, what do I want to tell my audience? You need to be thinking, what would be useful for them to hear, or what value can I add to people's lives, and starting to think people first instead of kind of brand first. And I think I heard this expression actually from somebody at Dentsu, and I love repeating it, is that being boring is expensive.
Yes.
Right? You have to
Absolutely.
pay so much more to get your message across if the way that you're delivering it is fundamentally dull. So originality and authenticity and relevance are all just hyper more important than they ever have been before, because the expectation of our mobile phones is that the content I see there will be personal to me, not to my demographic, not to where I am right now, but to me in all of my strange and unusual nuance. So I need content that's my expectation.
We don't want to be the target audience, right? We want to be Irina with a
Oh, I'm different.
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what's interesting when you start to unpack what bravery and being boring means.
Yes.
Because one's man's meat is another man's poison. So what is super relevant and interesting to one community is very dull to another. And that's where, when I work with my creatives, it's like trying to understand an audience first insight lead into and that's what creators are so brilliant at, being able to help brands connect to communities, because they make it interesting to that audience, even if another creator makes the same brand very interesting to another audience. But as creative directors, we've got to get our head around that one brand could be something, because that wasn't the way that, in broadcast media, we couldn't do that. So it's not the muscle memory that we have of building a brand, which has got a very kind of strict guidelines. Now a brand can be different things to different people through creators.
If we're talking about content created by creators, it's kind of a given right now that it is more attention grabbing, right? So how do we then adjust our media planning to make it not just people first, but actually creator first and social media first?
So we're thinking a lot about attention, and we've done
It's our Roman Empire, isn't it?
We've done a lot of work with Lumen to really understand attention and what drives attention. And we've looked at things like everything from what are the formats that drive optimal attention? What are the channels that drive optimal attention? What's the type of content that drives optimal attention? And we've built those metrics into our planning tools so that we can actually physically plan to attention. So rather than planning to reach, is what we used to do, we now think about how do we plan to attentive reach? So how do we plan in a way that's going to be more attentive, delivers the reach, yes, but that layer of attention on top of it. So that's built into our planning tools. It's built into the way we think about channel mix, the way we think about formats, and now pretty much everything that we do is optimized to attention. And that's really key. When going back to your point about a sea of content and options, planning to attention becomes even more critical.
It makes me think the attention piece and how it relates to creators, about a case study, a piece of work from from Dentsu recently with Meta for Chili's. And that smartly kind of combined PI, personal intelligence, I love this, gonna steal it, with a lot of creator content, and then a product called Meta Moment Maker, which is a package to kind of pull attention, if you like, towards a specific moment in time. And that those two things together, so the power of the algorithm and the power of human creativity working hand in hand together to really drive attention to a particular brand at a particular moment when it matters to you.
Yeah, and again, kind of looking at it through the creative lens of what does attention mean. I think traditionally we might have thought of attention as disrupting somebody in the feed, that kind of thumb stopping. But actually, in this new algorithmic age, attention can be long term. So, an example of some work we did with Sour Patch, the sweet, where most kind of confectionery brands will be very sweet and likable in their kind of
Yeah,
community management.
that's the
Sour Patch
expectation.
is deliberately
Yeah.
very sour, so it's like having like a sassy
Oh, wow.
best friend. And but it's an ongoing. In this case, we work with a community management team, but they are almost recruited for their kind of ability to be sour, so they can jump into conversations and kind of react to other brands. But it's ongoing. It's not just a moment where you're grabbing attention to do something that's kind of a PR stunt or gimmicky, which is a way we used to grab attention in the past. It's now about rewarding ongoing kind of loyalty with attention, sort of smaller micro moments of attention. So I think it's just a different way of thinking about audience attention, which is, for me, very interesting, and again, a new
Right.
way of thinking about
I would love to add on to that. I love that, Caitlin, because I think that, it is a move from interrupting attention to earning attention. And again, to
Absolutely.
go back to this thought about value, when we talk about attention, the thing that really earns attention is when you are delivering value as a brand or as a creator. And the thing that often we look for, or that we advise people to look for when they're choosing a content creator, is to look at their unconnected reach, or the amount of shares, their share to view ratio, because shares is a really, really strong indicator of content that is resonating with a community and therefore capturing attention. So as brands, how do we create content that is good enough that people want to share it, not good enough that people will tolerate it?
That's such a wonderful thing, like how you formulate that, not to tolerate it. Like we don't need
Perhaps
that.
it's a bit harsh, but
But it's very true. So just continuing on that thought, when we are talking about brands plus creators, obviously we're talking about something long lasting, right? Because you can't really talk about delivering value if you are thinking about creators just about like this, one time activations, and it just comes and goes, and it's a really quick one, and you're just trying to, I don't know, like earn immediate revenue or whatever. So how are we fighting for this long lasting effect?
I'll jump in.
I'll jump in after you.
So I think it is working with the creators in lots of different ways. So, for example, we've got the School of Influence, which is a program that we started in South Africa, working with creators who are kind of up and coming. They really understand their craft and their, how to surf the algorithm themselves, because they sort of grew up doing that. They don't know how to work with brands. And so what has traditionally happened is brands see creators, at these kind of early nascent stages and jump in and can kind of kill the buzz by trying to get them to, like hold the product in a certain way, or represent my brand in the same way as if you were a paid actor in an ad. And
Yeah.
that absolutely destroys that genuine creator voice and creativity. So my advice to brands is to start early with creators and be with them for the long term, not
Right.
just kind of once they're big, then jump on the coattails of their success.
Yeah, I think the two things from my perspective, that plus one to the long-term partnerships thing, and we do see brands that are finding real success with creator marketing strategies are those that are adopting creators as part of their always-on strategies rather than a kind of one-and-done approach. So that long-term piece is really important. But then I think there's also a piece around diversity of your creator mix. And I think for the creator marketing industry, we're at this inflection point where the industry is realizing that it's not just about using influencers as kind of megaphones for your brand message. It's about using creators as interpreters of your message into the language of the platform, the language of the communities. And the reality is that the creator content ecosystem is so diverse. So you get, creators who are subject matter experts, doctors, people who are experts in, I don't know, hamsters or whatever. I mean, ultra niche things. I don't know where that came from.
But there will be some.
There will be. I'm sure there is. Subject matter experts, comedy creators, lifestyle creators, and even the type of creator who is not even in front of the camera. They're behind the camera and they've built a community entirely based on their craft. And I think the smartest brands are working with all of them in a real mix, because then you can see where your content lands, and that's where creative becomes targeting as well.
I would say a few things from looking from let's say a media.
Anything on hamsters at all?
Just let me see if I can.
Are hamsters part of your media strategy?
Not yet, but they probably should be. So I would say a couple of things. First of all, when we're thinking about people, we're increasingly thinking about not just who they are as individuals, but different need states. So to your point about thinking about a diversity of creators, that's the first thing to think about, is different need states and understanding what a selection of the right types of creator messages might be to represent different need states. And that's a lovely strategy, particularly for brands that might be in CPG space, or we're talking to alcohol brands in that space at the moment, is really understanding what creators can help you tap into different need states. The other thing I would say as well is you've got to be prepared to experiment and understand how you can create experiments to leverage what might work, what doesn't work, and measure that. And Meta have some brilliant tools around brand lift studies that can help you understand the impact of some of the things that you're doing in terms of different creators you're using, or looking at attribution at a creator level to understand what creators are working. So one of the things we're always encouraging our clients to do is to experiment, use different varieties of creators. As you say, there's micro creators, there's more macro creators, there's your BAU activity. What's the ultimate combination of those? And really experiment and find what works for your brand, because every brand will be different. And I just finished by saying we had a client last night who told us that what she's found is the most successful formula, and she's a beauty brand, Galderma.
Right.
And she said is having dermatologists with then kind of more natural, authentic creators, but the mix of those two together is really powerful. So you've got to experiment and understand what works for your brand in particular.
Do you think, or do you see it as a trend right now, that brands are still under investing into creators and creator assets and creator partnerships?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question.
well, I mean, when you think about it, to put all of the spend in the media spend and not into investing in the creators, I think it just doesn't make sense. The economy can't. So yes, I think that Gemma will talk more to it, the actual metrics of it. But again, as a creative, it's like the creators they're not just there to, be a content machine. They are representing your brand in a really, really particular and special and valuable way. And so investing in them, not just for the piece of content, as Katie said, don't do one and done and move on.
Yep.
Invest in them for a long time. Invest in their community, be there, and that does need spend. That can't be just, I'm spending on the media, but I'm not investing you as a platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other piece where this becomes really important is in the organic side. So there are, I think, a lot of brands who are working with creators, but they're working with creators just who are developing just organic content, right? And what that means is that there is a limited reach for that creator content beyond a very small community, but also that doesn't give the advertiser access to real performance data to understand how that content is performing beyond things like kind of likes and comments, which has limited usefulness. So I think where we try to encourage advertisers to do a better job is kind of uniting the organic and paid sides. And often an advertiser will have some awesome organic creator content, which could perform brilliantly if boosted as paid ads. And this is, something we have a tool for called Creator Content Recommender, which uses machine learning to predict if you have a bunch of organic content, which are more likely to perform if boosted as paid ads. But really that kind of leap in the industry maturing from creators are just this kind of organic thing where it's all about likes to actually creators are an incredibly powerful way to drive business outcomes. And there's no reason why you can't measure creator ads in the same way you do any other kind of ad.
Right. And I've just had a last point on that, which is we used to always say, if you're thinking about budgeting, it's maybe 70% media, 30% creative in a kind of an old world.
Yeah.
And I think brands need to rethink that model to the point that it's not just the content, it's actually your brand. You're buying your brand, a creator actually embodying your brand, and also the media and creative is so much more linked. So that sort of thinking about it from just a content perspective,
Absolutely.
I think we have to change how we budget as well.
Yes to that. Shocking plot twist, AI. Dun, dun, dun. So now that AI is inevitably becoming a part of the toolkit for creators, yet there's still a feeling that we are feeling a bit skeptical towards synthetic content, right? So how do we still make sure that even if some content has been delivered with the help of AI, we still get the trust and it's still, very relevant and on point again in terms of reaching the target audiences?
Look, I think that there's so many ways to unpack it, and obviously AI has got lots of different elements and how creative. If you're just talking about generative AI, that the assets that they're creating, I think there is a very quick and short answer: is just be authentic. And I think that consumers, customers, communities will become very familiar with AI being used to generate content. And when we all started using Photoshop 20, 30 years ago, we didn't then say, oh, by the way, we use Photoshop, not, So in a way, AI is a tool to create content, which is fine. And, I work with Adobe and there's lots of different kind of watermarking that you can do.
Right.
If you're in Illustrator and you haven't used AI, you can say not made with AI. My only caution with it is I think we're in danger of setting up AI as the enemy to creativity. And I really don't believe it is. And for creators, it's an incredibly important tool to make their work kind of more effective if they're going to work with brands. So as Katie said, that kind of organic paid mix is really important, but creators tend to only concentrate on their organic content. But I think AI can give them an opportunity to really understand the metrics of paid media, and if they're going to kind of be in the commercial world working with brands in a way that's valuable to them, using AI to help them see within their organic content where there has been what's the best edit to turn into a paid ad. I'd love creators to be involved in that, not for it to be sent over to the production house or the brand and them not to be part of it. So I kind of think of AI in different ways and how creators can use it, but I don't want us to set it up as the enemy to creativity.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. If there are hamster experts out there, reveal yourselves. We would love to interview you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.